All right. And we are gonna have a couple minutes for questions at the end, or however you guys like to do it. But I would like to give just a quick intro for our panelists that are present at the moment. So Johanna, it's great meeting you. I was unaware of you until Chancellor Pierre told me about you, and I just read your bio and I thought it was fascinating. So I'm glad you're participating. So for those who don't know, Johanna Posada, am I saying that correctly, Johanna?
Yeah.
Johanna Posada is assistant general counsel at to LSU institutions on issues related to higher education. Her responsibilities include assisting the general counsel and the deputy general counsel. Prior to joining LSU, however, she was an attorney for an established Baton Rouge firm, which I'd love to hear more about that, handling general civil and commercial litigation and other areas within the field. And also the high volume of insurance defense work and doing immigration and family law when she moved to another law firm. She's also an adjunct professor at Southern University Law Center. We're so grateful to have such wonderful adjuncts. A fellow with the SULC Supplemental Bar Program. And this is awesome, fluent in Spanish and proficient in Italian. So that is completely amazing. So that is Johanna. I see Antonio joined us, and I'm super excited to have Antonio here, as Antonio and I built a strong relationship while he was at SULC. I'm gonna give just a little background on you, Antonio.
Thank you.
Antonio Rodriguez was born and raised in the Rio Grande Valley. He obtained a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science with a double minor in Spanish and Legal Studies from the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. He then received his law degree from SULC, where he represented clients as a student attorney in the tax clinic. And after that, I do recall our discussions. Antonio has gone on to Southern Methodist University Dedman School of Law and received his LLM in taxation, and now is licensed to practice in Texas, and he is practicing in that arena. So congratulations, Antonio. I remember that process, working with you on that.
Thank you.
And last but not least is Rebecca Escado, who's also someone that I established a relationship while she was at SULC, and I'm so proud to see all the things that she's accomplishing. Rebecca was born and raised in Harvey, Louisiana, but after Hurricane Katrina, she and her family relocated to New Iberia, Louisiana, from my area. She attended the University of Louisiana at Lafayette and received her bachelor's degree in political science, pre-law, and minor in psychology. She is a recent grad of the Southern University Law Center, and while she was there, she was a research assistant and parts of numerous organizations, the Pro Bono, the Latinx Hispanic organization, and the Women in Law organization. While she was in school, and I remember this, you were law clerking as special litigation at the Attorney General's office, in the Louisiana Attorney General's office. And now she is an assistant attorney general in the litigation division in the Baton Rouge office. So I am very pleased and excited to welcome our panelists. I look forward to everything you have to say. I'm going to jumpstart us with a question just to kind of guide you guys. You're free to broaden out your discussions at any point. But I'd love to start us off by each one of you telling us a little bit about your journey to Southern University Law Center, and why you decided to become an attorney, and kind of give us a little bit of that journey.
Who do you want to go first, Carrie?
Let's start with Rebecca. I see you first on my screen.
Okay. Well, hi, everyone. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. Of course, again, my name is Rebecca. I was born and raised in Harvey, Louisiana, and I'm from New Iberia in the Lafayette area. So actually, I will be honest, for my journey to Southern, at first, Southern was not my first pick. However, when I was going through the different law schools, I decided that I wanted to tour Southern before I made my decision to, attend the law school. And when I first came to Southern, I immediately felt the atmosphere of feeling at home. And I think that's what drew me to Southern. And it wasn't also just feeling at home, it was also the staff that was so sweet. I had no schedule to view the school or anything of that such, and I ran into Chancellor Pierre, and he was more than happy to give me a tour of the school. And so I thought that was very unique for Southern, because no other law school would ever take the time to do that, especially the chancellor. So I immediately was like, Southern is my place. I wanted to be at Southern. And before I came to Southern, I, of course, am from Lafayette. So I attended UL, and UL is also a very home-based university. And so I care a lot about that. I care a lot about the diversity. I care a lot about who I surround myself with. And I guess the same similarities. And so I think that's what was very important to me when it came to Southern, and the diversity and the feeling at home. And I was just very pleased with Southern, and also the amazing opportunities and the mentors and the professors that I have met throughout my time at Southern. And is also the reason why I was given the opportunity to be at the Attorney General's office and to be where I am now. So I am just very grateful for that. And like I said, in other law schools, you don't get that. You do not get that at all. It's honestly, it's just cutthroat, and I did not feel that way at Southern. Everyone's just there to help. Everyone wants everyone to succeed. Doesn't matter where you're from, doesn't matter your background or anything. And I think that's what I really did enjoy about Southern. And that was my journey with Southern. So I'm very grateful with the friendships and the mentors that I received, the help. Of course, Miss Johanna, she helped me. She was my fellow during the bar exam prep, which results came out this morning, and I passed. So I was very happy, and I messaged her. I was like, I couldn't have gotten here without you. And that's why I go back and I say that you don't get that kind of support, that kind of help, that kind of one-on-one in any other place. And so to me, Southern is just very unique and important in that way. So that's my journey with Southern.
I love that, Rebecca. I think that's a great way to segue into, Antonio and Johanna. I'll let Johanna go next, but I love that. I think you captured the heart of what Southern University Law Center really is about.
Congratulations, Rebecca. I'm so excited for you. I'm seriously in tears. I had 3 mentees this July that took the bar exam, and all 3 passed the bar. So I started getting messages today, and everyone had a different journey. And if you faculty members understand how proud you get, it feels like it's you passing the bar all over again when you hear great stories like that. And I just knew they would do great because they worked so hard and they were so committed. And I mean, I know Rebecca was burning the midnight oil, preparing for that bar exam, working all day, studying all night. So congratulations and welcome to the practice of law, Miss Attorney at Law. So for everyone, Joanna Posada here, and my journey is kind of like Rebecca's, I guess, a little bit. I'm originally from Miami, Florida, born and raised. I blame my husband every day for transplanting me here. So people always like, why would you leave Miami and come here? And yes, I understand. It was a very strange transition. When I first got to Baton Rouge back in 2009, the Latinx community here was very much lacking. There was no community. I think that when I started law school at Southern, we started the Hispanic Law Association. And we had people who carried it after there. I started law school in 2011 and graduated in 2014. I actually sped up. I took 19 credit hours my very last semester. And so I was like, okay, I need to practice. I gotta get out. This is it. But my journey to Southern was actually, there was no question. I knew I wanted to become an attorney. Southern was the only school that offered an evening program. I was a full-time paralegal for a very busy law firm in Baton Rouge. And so we did everything from commercial litigation. Actually, our client was what was then called, the Mercedes Superdome, and is now Caesar Superdome. So that was one of our clients, and we did a lot of work for them. So the law firm that I worked for was amazing because I can't tell you how much every area of the law I touched. And right before I graduated, I was offered an associate position. So, I mean, I literally graduated and just went from paralegal. I think they moved my desk from one location to like an official office. So that's what I got. But at Southern, I can't tell you, it felt like family, right? So the evening program for me was incredible because I was able to still work full time and then go to school at night. I want to say that every professor I had, and I have some of them on this panel, so I'm going to be very cautious what I say. Every professor I had was amazing. They challenged me to the next level, but there was never an opportunity that I didn't take for that challenge. And everyone at Southern just felt like family. Like I think I run into Professor Gerard. I came to see Professor Rivera Perez, like when I passed the bar exam and told her, I didn't study for FedJ. You did this. I never even looked at it. Because literally I graduated December. The bar exam was very early that February in 2015. And we had no time to really like play around. So if I didn't have Professor Rivera Perez for FedJ, and she didn't like kick my butt, like unlike anything else I've ever experienced, I would have never had a chance to prepare for FedJ like she did. And I really just, I mean, it was graduate, took her knowledge from class and take the bar. So I attribute that section to her. For Professor Gerard, who's on here also, like kicked our butt one summer. I think sales and lease is what we took. And it was just like, okay, bar exam. So Southern really prepared me for what I wanted to do. I had great mentors there. Every professor I encountered, Chancellor Pierre was my professor like twice, because I think he was our evening division vice chancellor maybe when I first was there, and then he became chancellor. So I had him multiple times. And he really just brought home this atmosphere that it wasn't this competition that we hear about that happens in other law schools, but it was like family. Like I remember my classmates, if we were late to class, and probably Professor Oka was not going to let us in, we made sure we had food for each other, because back then the law school doesn't look anything like it did back in 2011. It has grown tremendously, but the community has just grown stronger. There was no, like, we wouldn't let our classmates fail. And most of us had families, we worked full time, we were all busy. And so we built relationships with our professors so that they also understood. They were either adjuncts or they worked full time themselves. And there was this just community of understanding, of familiarity, of making sure like nobody was left behind. I still attribute like my class that I started with as the most incredible class. We all still stay in contact. We all talk and practice. Like I meet them downtown for like lunch or something, or they'll send me like, hey, you're good at federal practice, so let me send you all this stuff for you to review for us and tell us how we should argue this case, or what should we file in this case. And that's just amazing, because I don't hear that. I hear people just kind of, go off in their own world, and you don't have that. But it was an incredible experience. For people to say like they hated law school, like I can't say the same, because I grew some amazing relationships, and I'm proof of example. I work full time, and I'm back to teaching as adjunct, and I still work with bar prep. So that's my story.
That is a great story. That's awesome. You just added more layers to Rebecca starting us off. I love all the positivity about SULC. Antonio, we're gonna get to you. I must say I am loving the look. I'm loving your new hairstyle. Antonio, I'll let you answer the question for us.
Yeah, I don't think I've cut it for about a year and a half now. So I'm originally from McAllen, Texas, born and raised, also known as the Rio Grande Valley. And my journey to SULC was through Chancellor Pierre, where he just called me out of the blue one day and said, hey, you should look into us. And, I'm glad I did. Because I started in 2016, and just reiterating what fellow colleagues have said, it does feel like a family. One thing that I have noticed after being at 2 law schools is diversity from SULC, from everywhere. So it's not just, you have all ages, all different types of ethnicities. And so that's one thing that, allowed us as students to feel comfortable and allowed us to grow. So, I mean, I don't know what much else I can say that my colleagues haven't said as far as how I got there, but I'm definitely glad I took the leap to move all the way from the southern border of Texas all the way to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And I do see Professor Gerard and Professor Rivera Perez. So hi to both of you. I did have both of them for some of my classes. So yes.
Thank you, Antonio. You know, you guys all have divergent but interesting trajectories. I'd just like to know a little bit more about how you decided or why you decided, some of your reasons to become attorneys, and even just going into currently what you're doing now as attorneys.
I can start on this one. So my family, we have several attorneys in Mexico. And so me being a first generation college student, especially as a Hispanic, it was sort of one of those, first generation Americans is one of those that I wanted to continue sort of I guess, I don't know if you'd call it tradition, but I wanted to continue here in the United States and, the first attorney in the United States for my family. So I'm looking to expand that, but also to set an example for people from my community where there isn't a law school. It's not expected to go to law school. Sometimes it's not expected to go to law school or school at all after graduating high school. So I do think it was important to set an example that even if we come from low income communities, we can still make something of our careers and not let that limit us. And so when I went to law school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do as far as what practice of area I wanted to do. But myself, I don't know if my colleagues can agree, but there's sort of an expectation for Hispanics and Latinx attorneys to become immigration attorneys, just because we're minorities in the legal field and we're expected to do immigration. And so I wanted to deviate from that. And so that's where I started getting more interested in tax law and seeing that I could represent clients with the IRS. So I do still, I'm not saying that immigration law is bad, but I don't like the stigma that if you're Hispanic or you're bilingual, you have to be an immigration attorney. I kind of wanted to put a stop to that and show, hey, there are other areas of law that you can still help your community and not limit yourself to that. So that's why I decided in law school, 2L year, and then along with my LLM, I decided to become a tax attorney, and that's what I currently practice right now.
Thank you for that, Antonio. I'm just going to add a caveat. I don't know if it was you, but I have had my interactions as Director of Career Services. I did have interactions with some of our Hispanic students who felt that same pressure. And I, having to talk students through recognizing that you yourself, the embodiment of who you are is a positive representative for your community, but also acknowledging that that doesn't mean you have to be responsible for everything as a part of your community. As an African-American woman, I also know that feeling of I represent all. But I have had several students of Hispanic background who did feel that pressure to go into immigration law, and just help people talk through. You can do in whatever it is you want to do. You can practice whatever it is you want to practice, and it's all wide open to you. And just being an encouraging person. So I love that you added that part of your journey to the story. Johanna, would you like to go next?
So your question was about like why we chose the path we chose?
Yeah, like your path to be, why did you become an attorney? And how, what are you doing now in in the legal field?
Yeah. So, you always have that one person that you meet and you're like, wow, I want to be like them. Right. And so I had a moment like that when I was younger, living in Miami. And I always loved the cartel shows and like the mafia shows. So I thought initially I was just going to go be the wolf on Wall Street at one point, because my undergrad is under economics and finance. And so I thought that was going to happen. And then housing crashed in 2008, 2009. I was like, yeah, that's not a good idea right now. So I had met an attorney who was a criminal defense attorney in Miami. And I was just really impressed with his kind of like his demeanor in court, and just his client base was just always really interesting. His client base was so interesting. And I mean, because he represented people like, you know, first degree murders and stuff like that. And it was definitely maybe some gang related stuff, but it was just really impressive how he carried himself and how he handled the business. And we see a lot of that on TV, because that's really what, you know, you see mostly, right? You see like Law and Order, you see, you know, like My Cousin Vinny, there's always like, you know, some kind of like theatrics that goes with it. And I thought that, you know, hey, I could do that, you know, but it wasn't until I worked as a paralegal that I really realized that, you know what, I want to help people. It's in my nature, probably why so many people become like, you know, professors and do a lot of pro bono work, is because you have a certain like guiding star, and all attorneys do, because your clients, you're helping someone, right? And so I think it was after I became a paralegal that I realized I got a little experience of everything, like insurance defense, some criminal law, some family law, some immigration. And I realized, I was like, you know what? This attorney's making a lot of money. I'm doing a lot of the work. So I was like, we need to switch sides here. I'm being very honest. I know this is how I thought. And I tell that to people who are in the practice now, like who are, you know, legal secretaries. I was like, if you have the drive in you, if you want to thrive for more, you can do this. And that's what I love about Southern having the evening program. Like, you don't have to stop earning money. Like, you can keep working and still get a legal education, which is amazing. So it was after that I realized I wanted to do that. And I started at a firm that did insurance defense. And I did a lot of like the big toxic tort litigation. Like here in Louisiana, we did like the plant explosion cases. We represented Turner and Exxon. And, you know, so I got a lot of exposure with that, and also for like governmental contract work, some workers' comp, some environmental law. So it was really a large breadth of everything that I got to experience. And I did a lot of pro bono work for immigration and for family law. I mean, I would go down to the 19th JDC for the self-help desk, and I still do that whenever I think COVID is over. I guess maybe we can go back in there and start helping again, but through the Baton Rouge Bar Association, to be able to kind of give back. I realized that as a defense attorney, there's this thing called billable hours when you have, you know, countless clients, and each firm is different, and you have to constantly, you know, generate a book of business and keep your billable hours up. And I realized, like, you know what, I'm working till 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm not sleeping. I'm not seeing family. Yeah, maybe this life is not for me, you know? So I decided at that point that I was like, we need to try a different area of law, because I think I take my clients' problems to heart. And so I realized that I was like, yeah, this is not sustainable for a family life. I wanted to be a mom at some point. I was like, this is not going to happen. I'm never going to see my kids. I mean, I would speak to other women partners who said, you know, you need to get out, you know, like basically you need to change, get out. And so at that point, I realized I didn't want to do the PI work. I had a lot of friends doing PI work and they were successful, but I just didn't feel like doing that. I was, you know, and I was definitely approached a lot because I was bilingual. So that kind of goes to Antonio's point about, you know, like, oh, you're bilingual, you can do immigration or you can do PI work because we need you because you're bilingual, right? But I decided that I wanted to try something I've never done before, and that was higher ed. I didn't even really understand what was involved when it came to higher ed. And I never realized the amount of politics and contract and policy that is involved in the higher ed education law itself. A lot of federal law, which is interesting, but it's definitely not just like singletary, like where like you only have like just higher ed and you think that it's just, you know, maybe just you know, reviewing contracts. It's not like that at all. I mean, there's so many different walks of life that I've encountered, and every single day is interesting, and you learn how to deal with the media. And so I'm in love with my current position just because I don't have billable hours anymore, but I'm also not working till 3 o'clock in the morning. There is a certain relief that you feel when you walk out of the office and you can kind of just close the laptop. And I switch gears to be an evening professor. So I'm with my students at night. I think one of my students is on here tonight, on here right now. And so, you know, it's a different arena, but it's definitely a good choice for me. It was a good choice for me.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Rebecca, would you like to?
Yes. So my story is a little similar to Johanna's. My story started very early, actually, when I realized I wanted to be an attorney. I had the opportunity to job shadow an attorney when I was a freshman in high school. And had no idea that I didn't know what I wanted to be. At that moment, I was set on wanting to be a culinary chef. Don't know why, but at the time, that's what I wanted to be. So I had to schedule one more career that I wanted to job shadow. There was nothing left except an attorney. So I was like, okay, I'll just do that. Well, I still remember this was in New Iberia. It was a public defender that I went to job shadow, and she was in the middle of a murder trial. And I was able to sit in and see how it all happened. And that's when I realized this is what I want to be. I want to be her. I want to be that person that's making this change, that's making these arguments, that to me, it was just amazing. And ever since then, I have worked to be where I am now. And for the longest time, I always thought that I would be working in criminal law. And it's because I think it's just because I was in the way I was introduced to the legal field. I was introduced to seeing a murder trial and public defender. And I had no idea. I was young. I had no idea that it entailed more than that. There was more than just that legal field. So throughout my time in Southern and throughout my time working at the Attorney General's office, I worked maybe one time in a district attorney's office working in criminal cases. And I realized after working there that I don't think criminal's for me. It just didn't really sit well with me once I was really working on the cases, having to do the arguments, looking at everything. I've realized that it wasn't really my cup of tea until I went to the Attorney General's office, and I worked in the Special Litigation Division as a law clerk, where we dealt with more of the federal courts. We had cases that were intertwined with civil rights cases. We were defending federal judges and things of that such. So that's when I was introduced to judicial immunity, qualified immunity, and all of these different types of work that I never even thought existed, to be honest with you. So I was very intrigued by that. And that's when I realized that, okay, I want to do more of the civil work. I don't want to do criminal work. I want to break away from that. And then I switched into a paralegal's position while I was studying for the bar exam. And after I graduated law school, and I was working in the medical malpractice section. Never thought I would work in medical malpractice. I ended up loving it. And I think it's just because it's a completely different animal. Because you have the medical review panel, you have to go through these procedures. They have their own procedures. They have their own time limitations. They have their own time delays and all of this. And then it may go to court. And so I found that very intriguing. And also going to Antonio's comment, I've also been pressured into people wanting me to do immigration law. And surprisingly, it's not people throughout my career, it's my own family. My mother has asked me, you ever thought about immigration law? We have family members. I was like, Mom, I understand that, but maybe that's not what I want to do. Maybe that's, to me, it's too obvious. I know I'm Hispanic. I know we can make a lot of changes, but that's not maybe where I want to be. And just because I'm Hispanic doesn't mean that I have to go straight into immigration law. So I currently am working in medical malpractice, and I love it. So that's my journey.
These are, well, first of all, such amazing journeys. Two of you guys, I've watched somewhat of your journey, so I'm familiar with it. And Johanna, awesome story from Miami to Baton Rouge and the whole like. I actually like to flesh out a little bit more about some of the things that you guys are doing. So like for Johanna, I love that you talked about higher ed and all the complexities that are involved. I know sometimes the students that are going to watch this, they are always interested in the journey, because to them, it's like, how can I be there, right? And so for each of you, and I know you've covered a little bit about it, but also reflecting on maybe talking to a law student, how you would talk to a current law student about, look, this is how you can get here. These are the things that you need to do to prepare yourself. These are the things you need to do to have these opportunities. And it doesn't have to be long, but just some ideas that you guys may have about that as you would talk to a law student about your about doing the things that you guys are doing now? Anybody can take that question.
I can go ahead and go first just because it's a little fresh with me. So as I stated in my bio, I was a research assistant for Vice Chancellor North, and he is in charge of the externship program. I will honestly say I advocate for that program. That program helped me to where I am now. And it's not just because, he introduced me to who I need to speak to. He also just laid out a path as to who I need to speak to, how I needed to speak to them. I need to not be afraid to express what I want. And I think a lot of students are afraid to say that to an employer and say, look, I want to stay here. What can I do to stay here and to move up, to be a part of this? Because this is where I want to be and I don't want to go anywhere else. And I believe that a lot of students are afraid to do that. I certainly was. However, after speaking with Professor North, he told me, look, you have to just take that chance. If this is what you want, you have to just go for it. And I think that's what I would say to a law student, and especially if they know what they want to do, they know where they want to be. Okay, well, then you need to contact that person. Do not be afraid. Put yourself out there. Strengthen your resume. Get involved in things if you haven't already, do so. Put yourself out there, create a reputation for yourself. Because to me, having a reputation at your school, with your professors, with your employers is very important, because I truly believe that's the reason where I got where I am. Because I was referred by the district attorney that I worked for in St. Martinville, and he referred me to Jeff Landry himself. And that's how I got my position as a law clerk, a paid law clerk at that. Because that's most of the time that's unheard of in law school, especially a lot of these state agencies. A lot of them are just externship. And you can get credit hours. That is all great. But, most students would want paid positions. And so I was given that opportunity. And it's just because my hard work paid off. Me expressing to my boss that, look, if you know anyone in the Attorney General's office, please let me know. I have my resume. I will do anything, because I just want the opportunity to even be given an interview. And sure enough, I got my interview. I got what I asked for. He's like, look, I opened that door. It's up to you to keep it open and to walk through it. And that's what I did. I had my interview. They loved me. And I got offered the law clerk position. Ever since then, I built my reputation. I kept my employers happy. I did the work. I worked hard. And I believe that's why I was known throughout the litigation division, and why I was approached by the section chief in medical malpractice. I was approached by general liability, road hazards, transportation, and it's because of the reputation that you build. To me, that's just very important. But it won't start unless you say something. You have to speak to someone. You do not be afraid to take that step. I surely was, but I went ahead and I did it. And I think that's even why I got offered an assistant attorney general's position. And I'm very happy where I am. And I wouldn't have been there if I just didn't take that step. So that is my biggest advice to a law student. Do not be afraid to put yourself out there. And if you're going to say that, hey, I'm an asset, I'm worth it, you need to show them that you are. So that is my advice to any law student.
I think just to reiterate what Rebecca just said, just don't be afraid to ask. A lot of people are thinking, well, what's the worst they can say? The worst they can say is no. And so one of the biggest things, I got a judicial intern position at the federal court in Baton Rouge by literally just calling up the office and asking, do you have judicial interns for the semester? They're like, no, well, we just have one. We could use another one. And I sent over my resume, and it was literally just calling and asking, hey, are there any judicial intern positions that can be offered? So that's really important to do that. Just don't be afraid to speak up. And along with that, just make connections with your professors, because especially if you are going to practice in Louisiana, they have worked in Louisiana, they have experience, they have connections. So it's important to do that and make sure that you put yourself out there. So that's my advice as well.
So I think that putting yourself out there is super important, like Rebecca and Tony had just said. But I think you have to build, when you're an early law student, you have to build your reputation. You have to build your integrity, and getting yourself known and noticed for the work and how you treat others is super important. One of the reasons I think that I always brag on the class that I started with is because I still can't remember any student that would have been disrespectful to a professor. We were petrified to be rude or question the authority of one of our professors. And the reason being is because you just never know, right? These people are super connected. They can basically help build your future. And so if you show the hard work, like if you put the work in it, you make the relationships grow, it'll actually open doors. You never know who's watching or who's paying attention. You never know who's going to be approached and say, like, I mean, I get asked all the time, they're like, hey, we want to hire an assistant general counsel. This is how much we're paying. Do you have anybody in mind? And I'm like, who can I ask? You know, who would I recommend? But it comes from like the work and integrity. So this is not to brag on myself at all, because I'm not one of those people that does that. But I do want to say that when I applied for the job at LSU, it was a highly competitive position. And I had just met the mark, because they wanted someone with, I think, 3 or 4 years of work experience. And I was like, the day I applied, I had hit the mark, right? Like literally sworn in, and I was like counted forward, right? And the only reason I think I even got probably a second chance was because of the hard work I had put in, the people that they asked about me. I just so happened to have been in trial with the chairman of the board. I didn't even know he was chairman of the board because it was in New Orleans. I'd never put 2 and 2 together. I never went to LSU, so I didn't know the players that were involved. But I knew that I wanted a change from the defense world to something totally different. And it was how I conducted myself throughout the litigation, how I conducted myself in trial. I even complimented him, because I was like, okay, I realize now this is your sandbox and you won because of this sandbox, but I'm gonna catch you at the appellate court level. Like, we're taking writs. And I did. We actually won that case. And it was a really contentious. It was for the New Orleans, the new terminal that was built out. And there was a high dispute over who was going into that terminal. And it was a big contract dispute about that. And it was held in CDC, and then it went all the way up to the Fourth Circuit. And so he recalled that he was like, that was you kept tripping me up on procedure. I kept messing up because of procedure. And I was like, I had some good procedure professors, and so building that relationship and not being, because I've seen some lawyers, I've seen some law students just be totally disrespectful to professors. And I'm just like, oh my God, you're not doing it, because you just never know. You just never know who knows who has what connection, and just how important that is. Because when you build your integrity, you build your work, your work ethic, they see that. And you'd be surprised how many of our professors are so well connected, adjuncts and full-time faculty, not just in this state, but in other states, And so if you really want a job and you want someone to vouch for you, you have to put in the work. So start early, be respectful of people, but put in the hard work, show that you can do the job, because that's half the battle. And the other battle is actually going out there and getting it. Like Rebecca and Antonio have said, ask for it, believe in yourself. But no one's going to just say if they don't know you, they don't have any background on you. And if they call, a professor that they know and they're like, that person, they didn't do that good in my class, or I don't know about that, or they didn't conduct themselves that well, or you impacted someone in not the best way. So all of those things carry weight when it comes to your path, right? Because I can tell you that out of 286 applicants, I know that I probably wasn't the most qualified, because there had to be people with more years of experience. But it was the amount of people that they received info from. When they asked, I was probably, because of personality and all of that, but when they asked, they said, you can mold this person into what you want. This person can do it all. This person's not going to stop. This person has a good attitude. This person is happy, friendly. You need that balance in the workplace. And so all of that comes into play. So hard work, you're building your integrity, and, obviously believing in yourself and pushing for it.
Oh, that's awesome. That is all awesome. I want to leave some time for students to be able to ask questions. I just have one last question. it's kind of broad, and it kind of gives you guys the opportunity to think about the legal education as a whole, as attorneys from a Hispanic background, and how, whether it's our local Louisiana community or Texas community, but how the legal community is supporting you individually as a Hispanic attorney. And I'm gonna also leave room for you to talk about maybe some things you noticed at Southern, at the Law Center, and maybe offer some ways that we can also be more supportive of our growing Latinx population. So I know that's a big question, but it really just focusing on the way the legal community may or may not be supportive of Hispanic attorneys or future students who want to become attorneys from a Hispanic background.
I'll start with this one. So as far as your question was how the community perceives, I mean, first off, at least in Texas, Hispanics aren't really expected to be attorneys. That's not a profession like that. You know, I mean, obviously there are Hispanic attorneys, but it's sort of similar to the whole, you know, oh, you have to do immigration, you should be doing this instead. But as far as bar associations, you know, Dallas has a local Hispanic bar association, along with Texas having a local Hispanic bar, a state Hispanic bar association. And so what I have noticed with these is that they are really, everyone helps each other because they know how tough it is to be a Hispanic attorney, especially with some that are, you know, first-time attorneys in their family and didn't have support except for other attorneys or their classmates in law school. As for Southern, I think that the way Southern was actually, I mean, it is very inclusive. The only thing was, you know, there's not enough Hispanic students there. And I know Southern is, well, at least when I was there, I think I could probably count the number of Hispanic students on my hand. And I know it's been growing, and I know Chancellor Pierre, you know, asked me to help recruit, and I did help recruit several students that are still there right now, and I still keep in touch with. So I know Southern is doing its best to make sure that the Hispanic community does feel included at Southern and feels welcomed. So I don't see how much, I don't see what else they could offer, at least on my end, because I think they did. They did, and they are making their best efforts to ensure that the Hispanic alumni community is growing there.
I'll go next. I am in agreement with Antonio, actually, when it comes to Southern. I do think that the school is doing their ultimate best to, you know, recruit more Hispanic law students. And I would love to, of course, you know, reference some students to come to the university as well. Of course, unfortunately, it is the same as to right now. When I graduated, I think there wasn't that many of us in my class, honestly. And I would like to see that number grow with our university, because like Antonio said, you know, you have a certain when you're Hispanic, there's a certain expectation of you. You know, they automatically assume you'll be in immigration law. They automatically assume you're bilingual. They automatically assume, it's like they try to categorize you already before you even speak, before you introduce yourself. And I think that's something that really needs to be worked on and changed when it comes to the legal field and working as an attorney, because I know I'm the first one in my family to go this far in school. You know, my mom, she got a bachelor's degree and she became a nurse. However, I was the one that went further and became an attorney. So I'm the first attorney in my family. So I guess now there's just a lot of expectation. And when it comes to the legal field, I think there's that same expectation. Like, they expect you to work harder because you have more to prove. And to me, I just simply don't think that that's fair, because just because I come from a different background does not mean that I am not as wielded, not as smart, or if anything, maybe even smarter than some that are out there. So I think that that's definitely something that needs to be changed. And, and I haven't really experienced anything horrible yet, anything bad from another attorney, another colleague, or anything like that. And I really hope I don't, but if I do, then that I really do believe that that's something that needs to be worked on when it comes to legal field. But for Southern, they're doing their best. I do see that number growing, and I'm very happy to say that we were a part of that growing number. So I'm really happy about that.
So when I was in law school, there was 2 of us. That was my graduating class. 2 Hispanic attorneys graduated. So 2, right? There was, I think, maybe 2 maybe from the day and 2 from the evening, but different, day classes graduate earlier than the evening classes do. But that has changed. But one thing I love about Southern is that I've never really felt this disconnect. Like my law school class embraced, there was no like, you're Black, you're white, you're this, you're that. It never played, like it never like, they're like, oh, let's start a Hispanic association. Okay, we have a sports law one, we have this one, we have that. We just started everything, right? But it was never something where I felt I wasn't, like my ethnicity was questioned or I wasn't part of it. Like they were me and I was them. Like there was no distinction. And that is the mindset I came from Miami, because it is a huge melting pot, right? Never judge a book by its cover, because you might think someone is maybe Caucasian and they're Cuban. So you can't just start thinking like, or it's someone who it might have like, you might think they're African American, they don't speak a lick of English, they're Dominican or Puerto Rican or whatever. It's like and then the beauty of it is that there's the mixed cultures, and so people will speak half German, half Spanish, and never speak English. So that's the mindset I came from. And so to come to Southern and kind of embrace the same no distinction was so beautiful to me. And I never really felt the need for that, but we did start it to hopefully help it grow, because what it does is it changes our culture here. Because when I got to Louisiana, I was in shock that the idea of racism existed and that there was this distinction. And I had never experienced that. So it was different for me coming from a melting pot. Over there, if they don't like you, it's because of the block or, the flag or something. And it was country to country, like, it wasn't based on your skin color. So I didn't really understand that until I got here. And then the difference between having curly hair one day and straight hair another made me change who I was. I was like, what are you talking about? It's just my hair. Like, why does that matter? But I am happy to see that future classes have grown and the diversity, it continues to grow, because it's not just Hispanic, even though I know this is a Latinx panel, but it's just all over. Like, we have people who speak Farsi, people from, different countries are coming. And that to me is beautiful. I think I have a student that was from, I can't remember, like maybe she was in Australia taking Zoom classes this summer. Like, it was pretty incredible. So I hope that if the need for community for the Latinx community needs to grow, I hope it continues on the path that it is. I will tell you that the legal community, at least here in Baton Rouge, is not as strong as it is in New Orleans. So like New Orleans definitely has a greater, like I think the Hispanic Law Association is there more than here. But I joined the Martinet Society because Martinet gave me a bar scholarship, and again, it's like my people, like I don't see the difference, but I would love to see the community here for Latinx to grow continually, and the same as Asians or, any other culture that needs it.
Thank you for that, Johanna. I agree. I think more along the line for support, right? Like having a bar association in Baton Rouge that you can have other attorneys that you can speak to and feel connected to, even though, we're all one, it does help for supportive purposes. So I'm going to open up the floor. I think we have like 10 minutes and see if any one of the students that are present or any of the professors, if anybody has any questions they'd like to ask of our panel. I'm going to leave this open for you guys now.
Well, I have a question. I'm going to raise my hand and do it the old-fashioned way. You guys look so successful and polished, and I think sometimes when you're in law school or you're trying to go into law school, that looks so far away. I was speaking to a student today who's a new freshman. It was kind of like, I don't think I can do this. And so I told the story. I said, when I was a freshman, if I'd have spent less time looking in the want ads to figure out what job I was going to get when I flunked out of law school and more time studying, I'd have probably done better my first year. So could you comment a little bit about how, for the students that are going to be listening to this, how it's pretty natural to have doubts and you just kind of have to fight through those to get through law school?
I think I wanted to quit every day because I was exhausted, working full time, going to school at night, had enough. I was every semester, we're quitting, we can't do this anymore. But it was not an option. Like I had like I guess our 2Ls and 3Ls had been through it. And so having, again, I don't know, but Southern has this amazing community where there wasn't like, we're trying to get over on you, we're competing. It was more like, if I got to point A, it's from point A to point B, I'm going to help you as well get from point A to point B. So building your relationship with your upperclassmen is really important for that, because I think you can get that support from them. And also being able to talk to your professors, letting them know how you feel. You'd be surprised how many professors are willing. I mean, I still have students that reach out to me when they're in practice and like they're law clerking somewhere, and they have questions about something because they want to do a really good job to impress their mentor. And so I'm more than happy to provide guidance and support. I mean, I feel like all of our faculty at some point becomes like mental health counselors, because I think that we do that naturally, right? Like we're there to help each other get through, because it's hard. It's not easy. It definitely isn't, because you kind of feel like the world is passing by outside. I used to tell my bar prep students, like, you're going into solitary confinement. You're in Angola for a whole like 30 days. There is no socialization. If I catch you on Twitter or on Instagram, I'm constantly calling them out for not doing the right, like you're in solitary confinement preparing for the bar. And it can feel like that when you're in law school, because you're not able to do the same things because your time is limited. You have to study, and it's having that support. So I think that it's important to support each other. And I think faculty does an incredible job at that. But also your upperclassmen that have been through it, it's important to reach out.
I couldn't agree more with Johanna, because especially in my experience being at Southern, when I still remember when I was a 1L and I was terrified. I had no idea. No one knew what they were doing. You're a 1L. You're told that, look, you're going to be grinding. You're going to have no time to sleep. You're not going to have this. So it's like you're just kind of like, okay, what do I do? I feel like I'm alone and I just have no one to talk to, because you're new. You're a 1L. You have no idea. And so I think for me, I ended up trying to develop friends in my classes. And I did. I ended up having the most amazing study group that any person could have asked for. And it's because that we helped each other. Like if you weren't understanding something, I was able to reach out, not just to my study group, but to anyone, an upperclassman. They are more than happy to send you your stuff, what they did, how they studied, give you the inside scoop of this professor and all of this. They're so eager to help. And to me, all you have to do is just ask. Don't be afraid to ask. You are not the only one, even though they may not say anything, you are not the only one that's feeling this burden, feeling like this pressure. You're not the only one. I promise you that. And there has been times that I feel doubtful of myself, especially when it came to courses that were very difficult to me, that were very easy to others. It took me forever for some reason, to catch on a BCP, basic civil procedure. I just joined her, was not clicking. Was not clicking. And so I reached out to my study group. I reached out to upperclassmen, and there was actually this one upperclassman that set aside time for him to come and actually sit with our study group. And he made this whole PowerPoint, gave us his outlines, and he showed us step by step, like, this is what this is. This is how you'll see it. And to me, again, that's just very helpful. But we wouldn't have gotten that help if we just didn't ask. We didn't express that look, I'm not understanding this, or I feel like I'm going to fail this class. I feel like I'm not doing well. I need help. And the staff, your colleagues, they are going to be more than happy to help you. I promise you, especially the upperclassmen, because they've been through it. They've done it, especially if you're taking the same professor. They know, I promise, so just reach out, just ask, just do not be afraid to seek that help.
I think one thing I would say is get through, law school before you start looking at everything past that. Because without that, you can't do anything. So obviously make sure you get through your 1L year and ensure that you're doing your best at it, because if you get too far ahead of yourself, you might just lose everything else, you know. So make sure that you are focused on your 1L year, 2L year, 3L year, so that by the time you get to your bar prep and all that, you know you've put in the effort and it's going to pay off for you. So I would say take it one step at a time and don't get ahead of yourself.
Thank you guys for that. If there is one pressing question, we have like 3 minutes left. So if somebody has a really pressing question, you're welcome to ask it now. But if you don't, I want to thank you guys so much. If this was an amazing panel, I think the discussion was organic and genuine. I love that you guys are you're representing SULC to the nth degree. And we're super proud to call you colleagues. And I just want to say thank you. So thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us. And
Thank you so much.
You guys have a great day.